there were some times where, particularly when I'd lost the money, big lots of it, that I would think, I've got to give this up.
Hello and welcome to Wellbeing. I'm Jack Hodgins. Today I'll be discussing the experiences of having problem gambling. We are joined by Ralph, who was first introduced to gambling in his early childhood in the 1940s, putting bets on for family members. Ralph has seen gambling change over time, even witnessing the first poker machines coming to Australia in 1956. He has been free of gambling for 2 decades. Through the Gambling Impact Society, Ralph is a regular presenter for their Consumer Voices community education sessions. Hello, Ralph, and welcome to the program.
Oh, good morning, Jack. Thank you for your call.
Before we begin, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, Ralph?
I was born in 1940, so that puts me at 81 years of age. I was born in Petersham. We moved to Picnic Point when I was about 5 or 6, and it was just all bush and dirt roads. As a matter of fact, that's where I started to find out about gambling. I kicked off with a bet, run the SP bookmakers. They were illegal, but there was a garage, a couple that lived in a garage in a property near us. I would run the bets for my grandmother, sometimes with parents. It was a Saturday night. My parents were out somewhere on the Saturday night, and my grandmother said, "Look, son, you take these bets down to Morgan's," that was their name. "Pick a greyhound," she said. So I had a quick look at the form guides, and I picked a dog. Smart Alec was its name. And my dad used to say, "Son, don't be a smart Alec." And it was number 8, and it was at Wentworth Park, and a 1. And that was my introduction. I suppose you could say that's where I was hooked into gambling. I left school and started work in 1957. I was 17 then, and I worked in a government department at Rosebery in Sydney. Most of the there was a lot of young fellas like myself. Most of them gambled, and I just fell into that. I didn't have a problem with gambling then. I was very careful with my money, and as the years rolled on, and I left that department and worked at back at Fairfield in the council. A lot of quite of those fellas there that I worked with were gamblers. It was just normal to gamble. That's my experience. Dad was very disciplined sort of guy. He didn't drink much. He smoked heavily, but he would get tips on the horses and that sometimes, and we'd have a bet, and it was just a gradual thing, and it was the people that I knocked around with all gambled mostly, so I fell into that culture. So I got married when I was 24, had 3 children. My gambling increased. I'd married a lovely lady, and her parents were gamblers. You know, I never thought of it being a problem. And gradually, with all the responsibilities I've had, buying off a house and so forth, I would get a second job. I worked in clubs in Sydney, and I witnessed the poker machines, and I saw people. So they would have been addicted. I've seen them do their businesses, their marriage bust-ups, taking their life, but that didn't stop me. I wasn't into pokies. I sort of shied away from that. I'd gamble heavily mostly on the Saturday, and I would attend the races, and that would be mostly horses. I had a couple of greyhounds that I trained at one stage, and also the trots. I like going to the trots of the night. So it just sort of took over my life. So the big wins would kick you on. It was like a hit. Well, I won the money. I'm right. I can go bigger and bigger. And so my gambling increased and increased. And I spent 5 years at a greyhound track Saturday afternoons as a judge. I wasn't supposed to gamble on the dogs, but I did. Anyway, my gambling, I become very irresponsible. And I started to neglect my family, my 3 kids, my wife. I went off the rails. Our marriage busted, but my gambling increased. As the years rolled on, I got married to someone else, and I drained our bank account. I was starting to gamble in the afternoons, and then I'd go and play the poker machines. That was my downfall. Saturday, I won a fair amount of money on the horses, and on that night, I put it all back into the poker machines. And I was very, very depressed. And on the Sunday morning, I got up and went for a walk, and I came back, and I remember that I thought, I've got to do something. And there was a phone number, and it was called State Government Help for Problem Gambling. It was G-Line. I rang. I nearly didn't ring, and I rang, and I was a discussion with that lady for about an hour and a half, 90 minutes. I got some phone numbers to ring as to counselling, and I just didn't believe in counselling. But I did step up to the mark and go. And that phone call is probably the best phone call I ever made in my life. So now I'm with what we call the Gambling Impact Society, the GIS, and I've been with them for over 10 years. I'm a life member of that. I'm still doing what we call consumer voices. What we're doing now, we are gamblers, try to get across to the public the harm that is in gambling. Some people can just have one bet a year or something. They might go to the poker machine and just put in 10 or 20 bucks. But for a problem gambler, it doesn't work that way.
What do you think makes gambling so addictive?
It's many things, I guess. The big thing is the win. Yeah. I never thought I'd lose, believe it or not. But I'd walk onto a racetrack or into a tab, and I never thought that I would lose. And I mean, that's crazy. You know, it's hard to explain. It's like any addiction. It is an addiction, and it's a health problem too, like mentally. And it's the losses of money is bad too, but also if it busts up your family. Most of my mates that I'm still slightly in touch with still gamble, but they were aware that they respect me for my stand. One of them, a real good old mate of mine, he said to me, "Ralph, you're different now. You got more confidence." And my son said the same thing to me one day. He said, "Dad, you're different to what you used to be." So people see a change in you, and I feel that change.
You're listening to Wellbeing. My guest today is Ralph, recovered gambler and collaborator with the Gambling Impact Society. Is the way Australia views gambling, is it a healthy view?
Well, I believe not. Because the pitfalls there, it's like drugs. I mean, legalised drugs, people get addicted on that. You know, it's a life of misery, really. I heard a term some years ago from a guy, and I was in a pub, and I said, "Where you going, mate?" He said, "Oh, I'm going down to the room of doom," which was the poker machine room.
Right.
There's some people that don't gamble heavily. It's an escape, in a way. It's an escape from reality. And it's a lot of time. I spent that much time gambling. You know, I'd sit up nights studying the form guide, go to a club or a pub and play the poker machines, and the machines are going to win in the long run. The house wins.
The escapism you mentioned there, is that one of the main reasons why problem gambling occurs?
It's a big part of it, yeah. Yeah. Escape from your worries, pressure. You go into another world. You know, it's like there's a saying they've got in the moment, particularly the poker machines. They're very addictive. They've got the lights and the music, actually, they're small casinos, those poker machine rooms. Yeah. And they're legal.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are people can self-exclude. People in the clubs, they can speak to somebody if they see they're losing big lot of money. I mean, the clubs want the money, but it's a hard one to handle that. I never self-exclude. Well, I did really, I suppose. Yeah, I don't go. Look, and the other big thing is keeping away from the venues. I did that straight up. I wouldn't go into a tab. I wouldn't go into a club. If I wanted to have my dinner out, I'd go to a restaurant. These days, I can go to a club and virtually you can hear the music of the poker machines.
Yep.
And you might see a race being run even at home. I'm clicking through the TV, and the races are on. So but I've skilled up to just put that out of my mind and turn it off.
How you've seen culturally gambling, are we better off now in how we approach it than what we were when you were first introduced to it, or have we gotten worse?
Well, I think it's got worse, but we've also got more help out there, like counselling and that. We didn't back in the real early days of my gambling. I'd never heard of counselling. The different now is the stuff online, like the gaming. And my experience as a little fella at 8, gambling, today, they're younger online. All the kids on these devices and that, it's a trap. So I'd say it's worse.
What becomes harder to do in daily life when you have problem gambling?
Oh, your time.
Right.
Yeah, it's the time that you spend. A lot affects your work, your family. You can become antisocial. I'm an extrovert, but when I was in the zone, in the gambling, I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I just was concentrating on the next race or something like that. Or like poker machines, you walk in there and it's like a pack of zombies. Yeah, so it's harmful. It is harmful.
What goes through the mind as someone's problem gambling worsens? Did you find that you were actively aware of what was happening?
Yeah. You just try to get it out of your mind. You're looking for the next hit, the next win, and that spurs you on. There were some times where, particularly when I'd lost the money, big lots of it, that I would think, I've got to give this up. But that only lasted till the next morning. I got to a time there where I'd get up and, have me breakfast and so forth. And so when I was working, I had to go to work. And I was just thinking what I was going to do at the end of the day. Your work performance, which then you can lose it. I probably lost my job over it. I don't know. I always had a job. I knew, and that's the source of money. At one stage I had 3 jobs going.
Right.
And I was on my own. I was paying maintenance, paying rent, and but I was mainly doing that, so I had money to gamble. So that's how hideous it can be.
Did you ever try and conceal your addictions from any of your partners?
Oh yeah. Well, they knew I gambled, but they didn't know to what extent till the bills come in. One said, "Do you gamble a lot?" I said, "Oh, I only put on $5 or $10. You can tell hundreds of thousands of dollars putting on."
You mentioned the skilling up there. Would you mind going through that with us? How that process?
Oh yeah, with the counselling, as I mentioned, the first thing I had to do when I decided to, and I took the step, was to immediately stop going to the venue. And that's what I did. I think that's the big one, because if you're just trying to get away from it, but well, in those early stages, I just kept out of the clubs or a racetrack. There's that, and also your thinking. You're changing your lifestyle, so you've got to replace the bad habit with a good habit. And my first counsellor put me onto this. He asked me one day when one of the sessions I was going to with him, and he said, over the next 2 weeks, because I was going fortnightly, he said, write down what you like doing. And I sat down and I wrote down a lot of things, and one thing is I played a lot of sport. I always tried to keep fit, and I loved gardening and reading, not a form guide. Had to get away from that. I made sure I didn't go to the venue first. That, in some ways, is hard, because I don't drink these days, but back then I didn't mind a beer. Mm-hmm. And I had to, and you go into a pub and they got poker machines now.
Yeah.
And they had the horses on. So any venue, or most of them do, when I went into a pub or a club, most of them had the tab or the poker machines and everything else, or Keno, things like that. Yeah, so I had to be careful. I cut out buying the paper. That was so I didn't see a form guide.
Mm. Before you undertook that recovery, did you feel like there was this feeling that you wanted to quit, but you just couldn't?
Oh, yeah. It's a strong pull. Well, the first time I fronted up to go to the counsellor, I was early, and I sat outside in the car, and it was a 2-storey building, and I sat there for probably 15 or 20 minutes, and I wasn't going to go in. I was embarrassed, or I just felt awkward. Then I said, I'm here now. So I went in, and he made me feel, he realised, and he told me halfway through the interview, he said, look, Ralph, I know you're nervous, and this is new to you. And I said, yeah, it is. He said, we're going to go at your pace. And that actually calmed me down. So I felt challenged or something. So I'm still in touch with him after 20 years.
Right. Do you have a better quality of life now that you're free of gambling?
Way ahead, mate. Yeah. I went to TAFE, did a community for certificate, and that was a couple of years. I was attending a group called Smart Recovery in Nowra when I lived there, and I ended up going and do some training to run those meetings, facilitate, and I would have facilitated over 100 meetings, and I would have attended 300 or 400 meetings. I liked the Smart Recovery because it wasn't just for gambling, it was for mostly, they were drugs, alcohol, yeah. And I attended Al-Anon, which is similar to Gam-Anon. It's for people who are harmed by someone that's drinking, because one of my partners was a heavy drinker, and I got mates that are alcoholics. So I've attended them because it was just a chance meeting somebody, and I started going to Al-Anon. Yeah. They're the other side of AA. And with the GIS, I palled up with the GIS when I come down from Coffs Harbour, and that's over 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. And we advocate for people that are harmed by gamblers and people that are trying to change their lifestyle. I also did, I worked casually for the Salvation Army Bridge program in Nowra, and I did that for about 9 to 12 months, and that was a paid job, and I used to facilitate the meetings. They had a 10-session program, which it's excellent, but that was also for alcohol, gambling, smoking, whatever. And I've done that because I felt to give back to the community what I've received. Because all that counselling is free, and it's well worth it.
You're listening to Wellbeing, where we are discussing the experiences of living with problem gambling. My guest today is Ralph, recovered gambler and collaborator with the Gambling Impact Society. Do you miss gambling?
No. I can't gamble. I've tricked myself. Oh, look, I'll just have a quick bet. This is some years ago, and then I fell into a trap of palled up with a couple up at Coffs Harbour, and they played Keno. So I'd be sitting down having a talk with them, and they'd walk in every afternoon and play Keno. And then one day there, I thought, I'll take some numbers. I won $120.
Right.
A week later, I was back on the horses and played a poker machine.
Right. Yeah.
I could laugh about it, but it was pretty, and I went on for a while, and I did a lot of money, and then I went back to a counsellor, and that was Lifeline, and And when I'm saying skilling, I know there's help out there, and really, you're the only person who can help yourself, really. But you can get, people can assist. Assist you, but you're the one that's got to take the step.
Do you think that problem gambling is something that's ever really cured, or does it need ongoing management and strategies?
I think, you've got to be on the ball, It's like anything, I guess, that you do. I've got to, I'll see a race on the TV or, talking to some people. I've got a brother that gambles a fair bit, but I don't think he's got a problem. Anyway, I'm his problem. Anyway, you get into a discussion, they're talking about old race horses and stuff like that. It's a trap. I've got to be careful. I've got to be very careful. Yeah. So it's what you think. You are what you think.
Can family members or friends effectively help those with problem gambling? Is there any way that they can assist?
Oh, yeah. It's a difficult one. It's not everybody's, how do you put it, skilled up or it'll be the same with alcohol. It's hard to, you've got to stop this, blah, 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 blah. You've got to be compassionate. And because you can, there's a danger of turning them right off. It all depends how you approach it. So you've got to have understanding. It's like you think, well, the health side of it. Somebody's got a complaint where they're getting headaches or something like that. Go to a doctor. Yeah. But not everybody has got a full understanding of the problem of drugs or gambling. Gambling's a drug, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's all, it's about trying to understand them, let them know you understand.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a lot of stigma around in society towards those that have addictions or that have, problem gambling?
I guess there is. Myself, I try not to. Well, I know the stigma can be fixed. There'd be people that'd shy away. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And they got the stigma. They're thinking that, but they don't understand. That person needs help.
What would be the take-home from this interview you'd want people to remember the most?
I feel that, and I've got young grandchildren, and I know I know two or one particularly, who's been into this gaming and that, and he's 18 or 19 now, and I feel that we've got to be very aware of the trap from gaming on the device. Look at the ads on TV as to gambling. Wow, about that's mainly races. So that's normalising gambling, and it's a big trap.
Thank you for sharing your insight with us today, Ralph. We appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Jack.
My guest today was Ralph, collaborator with the Gambling Impact Society and someone with first-hand experience of problem gambling. Thank you for listening. I'm Jack Hodgins, and all of us at Wellbeing wish you well.